Hello again and welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of May 19th, 2014. Apologies in advance if my voice sounds a little bit funny. I just got back from a trip to the corporate offices in Novi, Michigan, and while it's sunny and friendly over in Southern California where our West Coast Operations Center is, it's still a little bit of rainy, cold, and flu season up in Michigan, so your humble narrator is not immune to that, unfortunately. That said, if you can live with my voice being a little bit different today and maybe a little bit lower, I think that you'll enjoy this week's podcast because we're talking about the big news of the week. Of course, the agreement of AT&T to acquire DirecTV in a stock swap worth between 48 and 67 billion, depending on how you count it. Probably fair to give you just a tiny little bit of disclaimer, which is to say that Signal Group LLC, the parent of this podcast, is a DirecTV authorized dealer, and yet I do not in any way speak for DirecTV Group, AT&T, or any of the entities involved in this deal. Now let's get on to the fun stuff. So after a couple of weeks of speculation, AT&T and DirecTV did announce over the past weekend that AT&T will be acquiring DirecTV in a stock and cash swap, which will yield, if the entire thing goes through the way they expect, a television powerhouse with over 26 million subscribers, plus one of the nation's largest wireless services and broadband providers. This is extremely, extremely exciting news for anybody who's involved in television, and in a lot of ways it's a lot more exciting than the Comcast-Time Warner merger. We should start by talking first about the Comcast and Time Warner merger because it did come first and it is going to go through the FCC first. That means that a lot of the hard work will be done by the time the FCC gets to DirecTV and AT&T. Comcast and Time Warner generally have some of the lowest customer satisfaction in the industry. The entire cable television industry is generally viewed as, really, really poor. I was going to make a comparison, but it's not fair. Really, really poor when it comes to customer service. People will do almost anything to get away from the cable company. In comparison, DirecTV especially has won Customer Service Award after Customer Service Award. AT&T has been recognized as a customer service leader. Both are innovators. These are companies that people can't wait to do business with. That's why DirecTV has grown every single quarter but one for about a decade. This is why AT&T has the massive position that it does these days. It's a completely different deal from the Comcast-Time Warner merger, which is widely viewed as a case where two not-so-great companies are joining together to make one not-so-great company. In a conference call this morning, we got a little bit of an idea of how this entire deal is going to work. It's going to take about 9 months before the FCC really approves this deal, but once it does, you're going to see better pricing for bundling right away. As far as technology, improved boxes, that sort of thing, that's going to take a couple of years because especially DirecTV is committed to offering the same standalone service that it has now for 3 years. That means that things are going to move slowly, they're going to move carefully, and when it's all said and done, it's going to be better for everybody. As I said, Signal Group LLC, the parent company of SolidSignal.com and the Solid Signal podcast, is a DirecTV dealer, and we've been told that things are just going to get better for us. Without going into great detail, we've been told that our position is secure, that you can still feel good about buying from Solid Signal, not just now, but in the future. And in the future, we're going to have a whole new set of services, not replacing, but in addition to what we currently offer. So keep an eye on that in 2015 and ahead because we're super excited about it, and that's just a little bit that we know now. Folks, there are going to be a lot of naysayers out there who say, well, this shouldn't happen, it's anti-competitive, it's bad for the consumer. I certainly do understand that, and I also understand that being representative of a DirecTV dealer, I could say some stuff and maybe you would believe me and maybe you wouldn't. But I'll just give you my own personal opinion here. This deal is not anti-competitive. In fact, it's pro-competitive. And how do I say that? Because right now there is only one company, and that's Verizon, that can offer you television, landline, broadband, and cell phone service. One company that's anti-competitive. Adding a second powerhouse, AT&T, that's pro-competitive. Now, of course, AT&T has had the ability to compete for some time, and they have been working very hard at that. But by doing this, by adding satellite service, they become an instantly powerful competitive force for Verizon and not just a secondary competitive source. That's the difference. Now we're going to be able to look at Verizon and AT&T competing on a level playing field, and that means lower content provider costs as the two companies sharpen their pens even more, and it's a better hedge against the giant size of a potential Comcast/Time Warner Cable. I personally think this deal has benefits galore for a lot of people, and there's only one thing that could go wrong, and that's not within DirecTV or AT&T's reach. It's within the FCC's reach. Even though AT&T has promised to obey the FCC's original net neutrality rules, meaning a completely free and open internet, if the FCC does not get its act together on net neutrality, meaning that everybody has a fair and equal share, everybody can access the internet the same way without some companies paying more and some companies paying less. If that doesn't happen, the whole thing could fall apart for everybody. Now, that wouldn't be AT&T's fault or DirecTV's fault. It would be the fault of an organization that's supposedly out there fighting for us. So I hope the FCC has enough time and makes enough time to seriously consider doing the right thing with net neutrality while they're considering whether or not Time Warner and Comcast should merge, whether they're considering that AT&T and DirecTV should merge. I know that the FCC is at its heart really just 5 people, 5 commissioners, but they've got a lot on their plate and a lot they've got to get done right. Folks, that about does it for me with this week's Solid Signal podcast. Personally, I intend to settle in with a few cough drops and a little bit of hot tea, perhaps, and I'll be back shipshape and ready to go for next week's podcast. If you've got some ideas on what you'd like me to talk about, of course, go to blog.solidsignal.com and press that orange Suggest a Topic button. Have a great week, and until then, best of luck to AT&T and DirecTV.